They said he was a prayer warrior, a man whose words could calm storms and heal broken hearts. Everyone trusted him. Everyone called him holy. He prayed for the sick, blessed marriages, and preached about love. But no one knew that inside his house, prayers were drowned by screams, and the truth that would destroy his image came not from adults, but from the dream of a 5 years old girl. Pastor Leonard was a man everyone admired. He was famously called Pastor Leo, tall, calm, always smiling. His voice was gentle yet commanding. When he held the microphone, the church fell silent. When he prayed, grown men wept. Many believed heaven opened each time he lifted his hands. People said his prayers carried fire, power, and divine authority. Pastor Leo often shared his story on the altar. I was born in a small village, he would say. My father was a farmer. My mother sold vegetables in the market. We have nothing but God. The congregation loved that testimony. It made him trustworthy. They watched him grow from a struggling young minister into a respected servant of God. They believed in him. They trusted him with their prayers, their secrets, and their lives. He had a beautiful wife called Sarah. Sarah was beautiful, gentle, and soft-spoken. Her smile was warm enough to calm storms. She loved God deeply and served faithfully beside her husband. Together, they looked like a perfect picture, a praying man of God and a humble, supportive wife. They were blessed with two children, Angel, 5 years old, bright and curious, Kelvin, 3 years old, playful and innocent. From the outside, they were a dream family. Pastor Leo once served as an assistant pastor in one of the most popular churches in Calabar. He was always the first to arrive and the last to leave, always ready to kneel beside anyone in pain, always willing to pray, fast and intercede. Because of his devotion, the church promoted him. He became senior pastor. The church erupted in celebration. Women danced, men clapped, songs of praise filled the sanctuary. People said, God has rewarded his servants. From the pulpit, Pastor Leo often preached about family. A godly home brings blessings. He would say, husbands must love their wives. Children are gifts from God. The congregation clapped loudly at those words. From the outside, Pastor Leo's home looked flawless. A praying father, a gentle mother, and beautiful children. But behind the smiles, something was terribly wrong. No one noticed, or maybe no one wanted to notice. How could a man who prayed with fire be hiding darkness at home? At home where prayers turned into screams, where smiles became fear, where love became pain. Sarah lived carefully. One wrong word, one late meal, one innocent question and the beating would begin. Pastor Leo beat her from the smallest things. If the food was cold, if the house was noisy, if the children cried too much. The same hands that lifted the Bible in church were the hands that struck his wife at home. Sarah endured it in silence. She hid bruises beneath long clothes. She hid tears behind false smiles. She told herself it would get better, but evil does not get better when it is hidden. Pastor Leo stood in the bedroom, fully dressed for church. His Bible lay neatly on the table. His suit was spotless. Everything looked perfect until his eyes dropped to his feet. His shoes were not polished. The calm on his face vanished. Sarah, he called sharply. His voice slicing through the house. Sarah rushed out of the kitchen. Her hands still damp from washing dishes. Her body was tired. She had cooked, cleaned, bathed the children, and helped them with their homework. In the rush of the endless duties, the shoes had slipped her mind. "I'm sorry," she said gently, lowering her eyes. "I will polish them now." She did not even finish the sentence. Pastor Leo shoved her with sudden force. Sarah slammed against the wall with a loud tug. Pain shot through her body. Her head spun as she slid down, gasping for breath. "All because of shoes?" she whispered, struggling to hold back tears. But Pastor Leo was already consumed by rage. "So this is how you disrespect me now?" he growled. "Do you even know who I am?" He did not wait for an answer. He picked up his Bible, straightened his suit, and walked out of the house like nothing had happened. He was late for midweek service and heaven must not wait. Sarah remained on the floor shaking. Angel and Kevin rushed to her side. With her tiny hands, Angel tried to lift her mother. "Mommy, are you okay?" she asked, her innocent voice trembling. Sarah forced a smile that broke her heart. "I am fine, my angel." Later that night, as the house fell quiet, Angel stared at her mother with curious, innocent eyes. Then she asked the question Sarah feared most. "Mommy, why does Daddy always shout at you?" Sarah froze. Fear rushed through her. She quickly covered Angel's mouth and shook her head. "Don't say that," she whispered urgently. "Never talk bad about your daddy. He is a man of God, an anointed servant of the Lord." Angel nodded slowly, confused. Sarah turned away so her children would not see the tears rolling down her face. That night, memories flooded her mind. She remembered the day her life changed forever. It was during an annual youth convention. The hall was packed. Music filled the air. Young people worshipped with lifted hands. Then a young minister stepped onto the pulpit. It was Pastor Leo. Back then, he preached with fire. His voice carried power. His prayers moved people to tears. The crowd shouted amen as though heaven itself had opened. Sarah and her two friends were mesmerized. "I wish my husband will love God like this," one friend whispered. "Yes," another said softly. "Any woman who marries him is blessed." After the service, they stepped forward for prayers. Pastor Leo prayed for them one by one. When he was done, his eyes rested on Sarah. "Please wait behind," he said gently. "I need to talk to you." Her friend smiled teasingly and walked away. When they were alone, his expression changed. "The Holy Spirit spoke to me," he said calmly. "You are my wife." Sarah was stunned. Her heart raced. She felt chosen and favored. How could a man of God say such words unless they were true? Within weeks, they grew close. He prayed with her, called her often. Within 1 month, they were married. The church celebrated. Her friends envied her. People whispered that Sarah was blessed by God. The first months were beautiful. Pastor Leo was gentle, loving, and attentive. Then slowly, something changed. His anger arrived without warning. Fierce, violent like fire. One slap became many. Apologies disappeared. Remorse never came. He believed he was untouchable. The crowds adored him. The pulpit worshipped him. And in his heart, he no longer saw himself as a servant of God. He saw himself as God. That night, Sarah lay on her bed and cried herself to sleep silently so her children would not hear. Sarah kept enduring. Day after day, she carried pain in her heart and shame on her shoulders. The suffering did not stop. The insult continued. The beating came without warning, yet she stayed. Anytime Sarah thought of leaving the marriage, her mind would rush to many fears. Her children, Angel and Kevin, were still very young. She asked herself, how will I raise them alone? What kind of life would they have without their father? Then there was the church. Sarah was not just a woman, she was a pastor's wife. People watched her closely. They listened to her. She was a role model to them. She feared what people would say. She couldn't endure. She felt as a wife. She ruined a man of God. The society's voice was loud in her head, so she stayed quiet. Instead of leaving, she prayed. She fasted. She cried to God in the middle of the night, Lord, please change him. She whispered many times. She kept believing that one day Pastor Leo would change. One afternoon, after a painful night, Sarah gathered courage. Her heart was beating fast as she went to see the GO's wife, the woman she respected deeply. With tears in her eyes, Sarah spoke, Mommy, my marriage is hurting me. The woman looked at her and shook her head. Sarah, she said, Pastor Leo is a respected man of God. He is a good man, a man after God's heart. Sarah tried to speak again, but the woman stopped her. Young couples look up to you, she continued. Don't allow the devil to use you to destroy your home. I'm a powerful man of God. Those words silenced Sarah. So once again, she carried her pain alone. Every last Friday of each month, Sarah and Pastor Leo stood before young couples in church. They held microphone. They smiled brightly. They thought about love. They thought about patience. They thought about peace in marriage. Young couples watched them with admiration. This is the kind of marriage we want, many said. God, give us a husband like Pastor Leo. Women prayed. People envied Sarah's life, but behind the smiles, Sarah was breaking slowly. She was living in a cage built by fear, faith, and the people's expectations. And each night, as she lay beside her husband, she wondered how long a woman could suffer and still be called strong. Sarah had learned to hide her pain. Every Sunday and Wednesday, she wore long sleeves and flowing gowns to church, even in the hot sun, just to cover the bruises that marked her body. She smiled at congregants, answered their greetings, and nodded politely as they praised her marriage. To her parents, she portrayed a perfect life. Leo is a man sent from God, she would say. He loves me and the children dearly. They never knew the truth, the fear, the screaming and the beatings, the silent tears she shed each night when the children were asleep. But one morning, Sarah reached the limit of what her heart could bear. After dropping Angel and Kelvin at school, she returned home with her hands trembling and her chest tight with dread. She stood in front of Pastor Leo, her heart pounding in her ears, and spoke the words she had kept buried for years. I can't do this anymore, she said softly. I want a divorce. Pastor Leo froze. The air seemed to crack with tension. His face darkened like a storm cloud. You are not going anywhere, he finally said, his voice low but deadly. The devil is trying to use you, eh? Sarah swallowed the lump in her throat. She didn't respond. She didn't want to give him another reason to lash out. Minutes later, Pastor Leo grabbed his Bible and wore his coat. I'm going for an evangelism, he announced. His tone calm as if nothing had happened. He left the house. His prayer team waited at their usual meeting point. They held around him filled with the power and authority that the world admired. Later that afternoon, Pastor Leo returned to pick up the children from school. As he entered the school compound, teachers rushed to greet him. Good afternoon, Pastor. Please pray for me, sir. Your hands are truly blessed. People reached out for handshakes, eager for a word, a touch, a prayer. To them, he was the only man who prayed down miracles. Angel ran to him, holding Kevin's hand. Daddy, she asked softly, where is mommy? Pastor Leo's face softened into a practiced smile. He crouched down to her level and spoke with gentle authority. She went on an errand, my angel. She will be back soon. Angel nodded, satisfied for the moment, unaware that her mother's absence was far more than an errand. When Pastor Leo and the children returned home from the school that afternoon, something seems different. For the first time in years, he helped Angel and Kevin with their homework. He asked questions, explained lessons, and even laughed when the little mistakes were made. He prepared their food, served it to them, and sat with them while they ate, out of care he hadn't shown since the day they were born. Angel, sharp and observant, looked at him with wide eyes. Daddy, why are you caring for us all of a sudden? She asked innocently. Pastor Leo smiled faintly, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He said nothing. He couldn't answer her question, and the silence spoke louder than words. That evening, after putting the children to bed, he slipped out quietly. He drove for an hour to meet a friend. Returning hours later, that night felt heavy, but he acted as if everything were normal. Later, alone in his study, he picked up his phone and dialed Sarah's number. The line went straight to voicemail. Her phone had been switched off. The next morning, he drove the children to school as usual. Once the school gate closed behind them, he called his in-laws. Good morning, ma. I haven't seen Sarah since yesterday, he said smoothly, hiding any trace of unease. She went out for a small errand, but she hasn't returned yet. Panic surged through Sarah's parents. They pressed him for details, their voice trembling. I'm worried too, Pastor Leo said, keeping his voice calm and measured. I will file a missing person report with the police immediately. He drove straight to the station and made the report. The officers began their investigation at once, asking questions, checking their usual haunts, trying to piece together her last movement. Back at church, he stood before the congregation, his face somber, his voice steady. My wife is missing. We are asking God to bring her safely back to us, he declared. The church wept openly. Tears flowed down the cheeks of men and women alike. They prayed fervently, crying out to God for Sarah's safe return. Pastor Leo, ever the man of authority, called for 3 days of special prayer for his wife's safety. The congregation obeyed. They prayed, they fasted, they begged God to bring her back. And all the while, behind the calm words and commanding voice, the truth of that morning hung silently in the air. Weeks passed and Sarah was still missing. The police continued their investigation tirelessly. They spoke with church members, neighbors, and anyone who might have information. Every answer seemed the same. She was a good woman, one member said softly. She loved her family so dearly. Pastor Leo and Sarah, they were the perfect couple, another added. Everyone looked up to them. Young couples wanted marriages like theirs. Meanwhile, at home, little Angel's world had shattered. Every night, she cried herself to sleep, calling out for her mother. One night, Angel had a dream she could not forget. In the dream, her mother was there, but she wasn't smiling. She was lying in a pool of blood, her face twisted in sorrow and fear. Angel ran to her mother in the dream, hugging her tightly. Mommy, please come home, she whispered. Her mother's lips quivered as she spoke, and the words cut Angel like a knife. I can't, my darling. I'm dead. Your father, he killed me. Angel's eyes widened in horror, and in that same dream, Sarah told her exactly where her body could be found. Angel woke up screaming, her tiny body shaking in terror. She didn't tell her father. She didn't want to. Something told her it wasn't the man he appeared to be. The next morning, after Pastor Leo dropped her and Kevin at school, Angel found a quiet moment and told her class teacher about her dream. Her words were serious, too heavy for a 5 years old to carry alone. The teacher listened in disbelief at first, but she couldn't shake the fear in Angel's voice. Something about the way she described her mother's blood, her fear, her pleading, it felt real. The teacher knew she had to act. She reported everything to the school management, who quickly informed the authority. And just like that, a child's nightmare began to unravel, a mystery the adult could no longer ignore. Angel sat quietly in the PlayStation, her tiny hands clenching the edge of the chair, but her voice was steady as she spoke. She repeated everything she had seen in her dream, every detail her mother had told her. The detective were stunned. They had never expected such honesty and clarity from a 5 years old. They pressed further, asking about her parents' marriage. Angel spoke without hesitation, telling them how her father had made their home a living hell, how her mother had suffered silently, how Pastor Liu had beaten her in moments of anger. The officers exchanged shocked glances. Pastor Liu, the powerful reverend man of God, whose hands were said to be blessed, whose prayers moved the hearts of congregations, was now at the center of a horrifying truth. The police reopened the case immediately. Pastor Liu became the prime suspect. They moved into his neighborhood, questioning neighbors. Some neighbors spoke of the strange noises from his compound. Others remembered seeing him preaching on the street the day Sarah disappeared. The class teacher mentioned something unusual. He had picked the children from school, an act he rarely did. Several people said they never saw Sarah leave the house that day. Even the estate security confirmed the unsettling timeline. Pastor Leo left around 11:30 p.m. and returned at 1 a.m. on the day of Sarah's disappearance. Evidence began to pile up, pointing straight to him. Finally, there was no doubt he was the main suspect. Pastor Leo was arrested. In custody, he denied any involvement in his wife's disappearance. Desperate for the truth, the police obtained a search warrant for his house. They found traces of blood in the sitting room and in the bathroom. Samples were sent to the lab. They matched Sarah's. The case was no longer a missing person. Then came the discovery that would shock the city. A local hunter out in a remote area stumbled upon a decomposed body. The authorities were called and the remains were sent for testing. They were Sarah's. Faced with the mounting evidence, Pastor Leo finally confessed. He told the detective everything. The day Sarah had confronted him asking for a divorce, the heated argument that escalated beyond control, how he had grabbed a hammer and struck her head twice, how she collapsed, and in a moment of twisted belief, he thought it was a prank. This wasn't the first time he had used the hammer on her. He described leaving her there, locking the door and heading out for evangelism with his prayer teams. When he returned, he discovered she was no longer breathing. Terror consumed him. He dragged her body to the bathroom, dismembered her, and carefully packed the pieces into a bag. He cleaned up the scene, covering every trace of what he had done. Then, as if nothing had happened, he dropped to pick up Angel and Kelvin from school. Later, he dumped Sarah's remains in a remote area far from the house at night. As he finished recounting the horrifying truth, Pastor Leo broke down. Tears streamed down his face. His voice trembled as he looked at Sarah's family. "I don't know what came over me," he sobbed. "I beg for your forgiveness. It was the devil's work." His words hung in the air, a mixture of despair and horror. The man everyone had trusted was the architect of a nightmare. The news of Pastor Leo's confession spread like wildfire. Social media exploded with shock, disbelief, and outrage. People everywhere struggled to reconcile the image of the man who had rained down heaven with the cold-blooded murderer revealed by the investigation. The courtroom was packed on the day of the trial. Cameras, reporters, and curious citizens filled every corner. Inside, Pastor Leo sat quietly, his hands shackled. Sarah's family sat at the front row, their grief heavy but their eyes determined. They had fought for justice for months, and finally, the truth had come to light. During the trial, the prosecutors laid out the chilling details of that fateful day. Each detail sent shiver through the courtroom. Friends, church members, and the public watched, unable to believe that a man so admired could commit such horror. When the judgment was finally read, the room was silent except for the occasional gasps. "Pastor Leonard, popularly known as Pastor Leo, for the murder of your wife, Sarah, this court finds you guilty. You are hereby sentenced to death." A heavy weight lifted from Sarah's family as they heard the verdict. Though the pain of losing her was immeasurable, there was relief that justice had been served. For Angel and Kevin, it was a simple gleaming of safety and hope. They were placed under the care of their mother's family, who vowed to protect them and help them heal from the scars left by their father they once trusted. The community mourned. Church members, friends, and even strangers struggled with betrayal and disbelief. How could the man who had counseled young couples, prayed with the faithful, and stood as a pillar of righteousness hide such darkness behind closed doors? At the church, the general overseer's wife collapsed in tears. She remembered Sarah. She remembered the day Sarah came to her quietly, the fear in her eyes, the pain in her voice. She remembered how she told her to be silent, how she warned her not to destroy her husband's ministry. Angel and Kevin, though young, began the long journey of healing. And for the city of Calabar, Pastor Leo's story became a cautionary tale, a cheery reminder that appearances can deceive and that evil can sometimes wear the marks of holiness. The legacy of Sarah, however, remained pure: a devoted mother, a loving wife, and a brave woman whose life, though cut tragically short, inspired justice, courage, and vigilance. As for Pastor Liu, the world saw the fall of a man who once prayed down heaven, but whose hands behind closed doors had committed unthinkable evil. And in the heart of Sarah's children, a new chapter began, one of protection and the hope that no matter how dark the past, the future could still be bright. Lessons from the story. This story teaches us that evil can hide behind the mask of holiness. The man everyone trusted, the one who prayed with fire and smiled in the pulpit, committed unthinkable horrors behind closed doors. It reminds us to look beyond appearances. Just because someone seems perfect in public doesn't mean their home is safe, their heart is pure, or their intentions are true. Abuse doesn't always leave scars that can be seen. It can be emotional, psychological, and devastating. Never ignore red flags in relationship. Love should never blind us to danger. Pray, seek guidance, but always protect yourself and your children. A home should be a place of love, safety, and peace, not fear. Darkness may hide for a while, but it cannot escape the light forever. Trust in truth, listen to your heart, and never allow charm of the outside world to blind you from reality. This is not just a story, it is also a warning, a call to watch, to act, and to never compromise safety for appearances. Thank you so much for watching and stay with us to the very end. We truly appreciate your time, your attention, and your open heart. Stories like these are heavy, emotional, and sometimes uncomfortable, but they are shared for a reason, to create awareness, to spark conversations, and to remind us that silence can be dangerous. If this story moved you, taught you something, or made you see marriage, abuse, or warning signs differently, then it had fulfilled its purpose. You are not just a viewer, you are part of a community that believes stories can educate, protect, and even save lives. Please don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss any of our powerful and meaningful stories. Your support helps us to continue telling stories that matter, stories that speak for the voiceless and shine light into dark places. Thank you once again for being here. Stay safe, stay aware, and remember, sometimes one story is all it takes to change a life. We love you all. God bless you.